Curtain going up. Curtain going up.
Tonight, on Icons Radio Hour, actress Joan Leslie, who starred opposite such leading men as Humphrey Bogart, Gary Cooper, and James Cagney.
I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy. You get that curtain up. You can't ring down on a George M. Cohan song. Why are you so concerned with Faye Templeton?
Oh, I don't care for Templeton. I'm looking out for you.
Ever think about yourself?
Not much lately. Haven't had time. The minute I saw you without your beard, I knew here was a little boy who needed a lot of looking after.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave myself the job. There are a lot of singers, you know, but very few really good looker-afters. Alvin,
Yeah?
Alvin, I just...
Yeah?
Alvin, you...
What's the matter, Yellow? Come and get me, buddy. Come and get me.
Oh, I know what Roy did for me. But I don't love him.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Icons Radio Hour. The program is presented by Moda Entertainment. Each week, we feature live interviews with those who knew classic Hollywood best. Your hosts are author Stephen Bogart and writer, director, and film historian John Mulholland. And here are your hosts, Stephen Bogart and John Mulholland.
Thank you, Jody, and welcome back, listeners, to Icons Radio. This week we have an interesting guest, and one that you've spoken to before, right, John?
Yes, I interviewed Joan Leslie for a documentary I did on Sergeant York of God and Country for Warner Brothers, and she is just remarkable.
She really is, and just look at the people that she's been across. She's acted with Gary Cooper, Humphrey Bogart, Jimmy Cagney, Hank Fonda, Fred Astaire. She was in Sergeant York and Yankee Doodle Dandy. Both of her co-stars won Academy Awards. She was also in High Sierra, The Male Animal, and Sky's the Limit, again with Fred Astaire. She's worked with directors like Howard Hawks, Michael Curtiz, Alfred Hitchcock, and Nicholas Ray, and she is Joan Leslie, and a favorite of yours, right, John?
You bet. Looking forward to this.
I absolutely have, and we will be right back with our interview with Joan Leslie after this break.
Quiet. The stuff that dreams are made of.
Icons is a new monthly magazine based on larger-than-life personalities from the golden age of Hollywood. From Humphrey Bogart to Katharine Hepburn, to Gene Kelly to Lauren Bacall, Icons has the stuff you'll find in no other magazine. The inside stuff. The stuff that dreams are made of. Icons. They are forever.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
To order Icons Magazine online, visit iconsmagazine.com or call 646-452-4579.
Hi, Joan. It's John Mulholland. It's great to speak with you again.
Hello, John. It's good to talk to you, too. It's been a while.
It sure has. has. I'm curious how you got such a young start in films. Would you elaborate on that a bit?
Well, I guess there's always a story behind those things. You know that I sang and danced on the stage long before I came out here, and did impersonations for movie stars, mind you. Yes, I had quite a little vaudeville act. Well, I got a contract with MGM, and I had a little tiny part in Camille, and then they dropped me, so I went back to New York. But my sister Mary, you know, we had a vaudeville act. There were three of us. Both of my older sisters, very gifted too. But anyway, Mary was signed to Universal, and when she came out here, she kept telling them, "You should bring out Joan. You've got these Deanna Durbin pictures going, and she'd be wonderful in those." But they didn't pay any attention, didn't bring me out. So she brought me out, and I started to get parts right away. Now, I was 15 then, I think. 14 and a half, 15, something like that. And I was in the Nancy Drew series, and I was in something over at Fox. And, you know, it was just a time. It's not so easy to get an agent now, and very impossible to get a small part. I mean, It's really difficult. Well, you know that, don't you, John?
Yes, I certainly do.
It is. Well, I had this little part in a Warner's short. Well, it was Nancy Drew. And after that, they said, it looks like she has some talent. Let's test her and put her under contract, see what we can do with it. Well, indeed they did. I did several scenes, and I sang, and I danced. They signed me. And then they said, well, we're going to groom you, and we're going to show you how to behave in front of a camera, and we have a dramatic coach, and she'll help you along. Well, in 2 weeks, I had tested for that very nice part in High Sierra with Humphrey Bogart.
Sure, of course.
And lucky me, I got it. And it was Raoul Walsh directing, and Humphrey Bogart, who was just so wonderful to work with. Just, quality people. I was so lucky.
Oh, well, perhaps it's more than luck.
Well, I'd like to think so. But they were determined to make good use of me, so I really went from one picture to another there, and I was also finishing up my high school years. They had that, the law required that I only stay on the lot so many hours, and I had a teacher with me to teach me and keep me up with my high school classes. And, well, you know what happened after that. We did The Male Animal and how many others.
Well, I think after High Sierra and I guess Wagons Roll at Night, you went into Sergeant York, right?
Yes, that's right. That was announced on my 16th birthday. That was a nice birthday present, wasn't it?
Oh, what a sweet 16, huh?
Yes, it was. Now, talk about the luck. Howard Hawks directed that, and I think the grandest leading man of all time, Gary Cooper, a great-looking fellow, a charming gentleman, and a knockout actor, really. It was a joy. That was a joy. I didn't even realize at the time. I just played right along with everybody. I didn't let anything throw me, and I don't know why. Just going along with them and just kind of throwing myself into whatever they gave me to do, and what with a good director, I was in luck, wasn't I?
Well, do you remember at all being uneasy or nervous, say, for the first part of Sergeant York because of a Walter Brennan being there and Howard Hawks and Cooper and that sort of thing?
Well, I can remember. I won't believe this, but I can remember. Maybe it's because I've talked about this so often, because it was a memorable experience. I wasn't uneasy, except for the fact that I didn't know how to talk to Gary Cooper in between scenes. I was very comfortable playing the scene with him. As soon as we played the scene, I was comfortable, like a stage actor, I guess. I don't know, but it was easy. But how to greet him and how to talk to him between scenes made me very nervous. And I guess he sensed that, because I hesitated quite a while. We met on the set, actually. We were going to shoot the scene. Leave it to Warner's, to not arrange that I would meet him ahead of time and meet the director ahead of time. No. We're all dressed in the costume for the day and made up and everything, and dropped on the set, and we're about to do the scene, and I hadn't met him. I hadn't met Gary Cooper. So I'm standing there looking at these gorgeous blue eyes, and he knew that I was nervous, and so he said, well, howdy, Miss Gracie, referring to my name in the picture, instead of saying, so you're Joan, who's been assigned to this picture and whom I know nothing about. He put me at ease by saying, howdy, Gracie. So I said, well, howdy, Elvin, how you doing today? And we went on like that, and we referred to each other as Gracie and Elvin all the way through the picture. Isn't that something? So it really did put me at ease.
That's a lovely story. I guess that says a lot about Cooper as a man.
It does.
Yeah. Well, after Sergeant York, you then went into Yankee Doodle Dandy with another legend.
Indeed, it was. I don't know how many other people they tested. I guess you know how careful Jimmy was about picking that script, and his brother, Bill, in producing it, because those were touchy times in Hollywood, and you kind of had to prove your loyalty. Well, Jimmy certainly did, and they came up with this script, and didn't like it. It wasn't, humorous. It wasn't warm-hearted enough. He really fussed at the writers to get them to add things. And then Mr. Cohan also had plenty to say about it. Of course, we had to have his approval. I say we. I had nothing to do with it, you may be sure. But
so George M. Cohan would get involved in the script as it was being done?
Indeed, he wrote one, and he submitted it. And it was pretty touchy business for the studio to say, well, thank you very much, George, but, you know, we have a script, and, you know, it's a movie-type thing, and we think we better go with our script because we had to have his approval. Anyway, we added, the things that he wrote, we added, and the script was added, and they added the two wonderful, the brothers that wrote Casablanca.
The Epsteins.
Epstein brothers, yes. They both wrote things for Jimmy and for Bill to improve it, and they made a big difference. And that's the script that we started with, and we got more as we went along.
Oh, and they did that uncredited then.
Uncredited, you say?
Uncredited.
Well, that's one way of putting it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, Bill Cagney was on the set every day. Mr.
Hal Wallace
always gets the credit for producing that, and I know he should get credit for putting it together. But Bill Cagney was on the set every day working out details that needed to be smoothed out before it could go ahead. But with that wonderful assurance, and with Mike Curtiz and James Wong Howe was the cinematographer. You can't be better than that.
Just look at this, Joan. You're, 17 by now. You've just, the year before, been opposite Gary Cooper and Humphrey Bogart. Now you're opposite Jimmy Cagney. And then you went into the male animal opposite Henry Fonda.
Yes. Delightful man. And the director, of course, the director was the man who wrote it, Elliot Nugent, and he also directed the movie. And he was just a delightful guy, just so humorous and so knowledgeable, and it's just a joy to work with people like that. I don't really think I appreciated it all at the time. I just took it for granted. Isn't that amazing? At 17?
Well, I'm just curious. At 17, given your life being opposite, in that world, who were did you have friends just in regular high school, just down the block, that sort of thing?
That's a good question. It was pretty hard to have friends down the block. I was pretty busy all the time at Warner's, shooting or going to school or taking the diction lessons or going on a publicity trek. I went a couple of times to New York and for an opening, and for a lot of publicity. And there was just something going on all the time. Oh, of course, I had some close friends from school, but I don't think that the studio thought they were very interesting. I know at one point the casting director, who was a good friend of mine, said, "We think it's time for you to go out now, Joan. You should be going out." I didn't take it very well. And I kind of left the office determined not to go out with anybody for about a year. I don't know, it's just funny. But it probably, if I had done that, things might have been different. Isn't that a funny thing to say? Mm-hmm.
No, I can imagine being that age and just not wanting to be told by someone, this is what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I can appreciate that fully, Joan. And then next you went into something called The Sky's the Limit.
Oh, yes, this was a dream come true, of course. I had the great pleasure of meeting Fred Astaire and actually trying out a few steps with him. I was being considered for White Christmas by him and Bing. That would have been just super. Well, the studio didn't want to loan me at that time. This was done in the evening over at Paramount. My agent took me over. I'm sure the studio wouldn't have approved. But anyway, I didn't get that. But Fred was looking for a time to use me in another picture. And lo and behold, it was The Sky's the Limit. It's nice to be on loan out. You're treated very well. The music was very good. It was Johnny Mercer. And of course, just to work with Fred, a most stunning and charming personality, and of course to dance with him. I always felt that I was a dancer first, really. And so to try to do his steps, always, when we watched his pictures, my sisters and I, we always tried to imitate his moves afterward. We'd come home and try to do the steps. And we did them, by the way. But anyway, dancing with Fred Astaire was just grand. It was an unforgettable experience to me.
Did you find him difficult to dance with? You always hear these stories from Ginger Rogers, how demanding he was as a dancer.
I did not find him at all difficult. I thought he was charming, easy. I have a knack of picking up steps quickly, and that's a great blessing. I'm not saying that I can dance as well as Ginger or any of the other lovely dancers that he danced with, but I catch on quick, and so it was good we didn't have to rehearse quite as long. And he had a very good lady assistant. He did the choreography himself on this picture. And so it was just Fred and this darling girl who played my part when I wasn't dancing with him, you see. He worked it out with her so that when I came on the lot, she and he together taught me the dance steps. And a wonderful pianist and a darkened studio stage. And I don't think we even had a mirror, but I didn't care. I was just watching every move he made, and it was easy. I think, that he was being especially kind to me. I was pretty young. I had my 18th birthday on the set of that picture, so I was only 17. He said I was the youngest partner he ever had.
I'll bet. You just said you turned 18 with Sky's the Limit. In your first 2 years, that means that at 16, your leading man won the Academy Award as Best Actor. At 17, your leading, that was Gary Cooper for Sergeant
Right.
York. At 17, James Cagney wins for Best Actor. That's unique. I don't think anybody else can claim that.
Yes, it is remarkable. I just don't think I appreciated it at the time, but certainly looking back, it's a beautiful memory. Just beautiful. And there were some others, too.
Oh, well, to skip ahead a couple of years, I'm going to bring up a movie. I think it was called Northwest Stampede. Is that?
Yes.
And the reason I bring it up, I was in school, I saw it on television. And I remember thinking, my God, is this movie, this woman, she shoots, she fights, it was, it's a woman that you'd expect to see in a movie today.
And yes, I kind of felt that was an up-to-date Joan.
Oh, well, that was terrific. How did that come about, that movie? Do you know anything about?
Well, it was an independent, after the long legal battle with Warner's, I was able to get some pretty good films to do, and one of them was Northwest Stampede, which was done on location in Canada, mostly on this West Coast, some of the outdoor scenes. The color was nice, wasn't it?
Oh, just gorgeous in that.
And I was glad to do color. I hadn't done a whole lot of color, and you like to show off your red hair. So I thought it was great fun. I like to feel that girl that I played was in charge of things. I never got a part like that at Warner's. You may be sure.
Oh, it was terrific. I'm surprised it hasn't picked up a following today, because for young women, it's just a great role model.
Do you really think that?
Oh,
gee,
yes.
I'd like to see it play a little more. It's kind of, it's not dated, I don't think. And Jack Oakey and Chill Willis, those two guys.
Exactly.
I mean, character people like that always give a movie so much, they tell the story like nobody else can do it. And they're so familiar with the audience loves them. It was fun to do, yeah. And of course you believed it when I was on the bucking bronco.
Of course. Just that is no different than when I see Gregory Peck on a bucking bronco in Big Country. Men have been doing that all these decades. Why not a woman?
Yeah. I thought that was great fun.
And I'll have to talk to Bob Osborne, see if they can get it up on TCM, because it's so far ahead of its time. Audiences should see it today.
Well, my goodness, yes, talk to him about that. He put it on at 2 o'clock in the morning, of course.
No, 8 o'clock.
Did you see Born to be Bad?
I was just about to bring that up.
Oh, good.
With Robert Ryan, a noir film, again, underrated, but it's something so current with the noir. It played up in San Francisco last year during a noir festival. But
I don't think that's so noir, do you? They really reached to get these noir pictures, huh?
Well,
but anyway, it was good. Joan Fontaine was marvelous. She's marvelous when she's evil.
Well, was that an independent also?
Oh, yes. Let me think, though. No, let me see. Oh, I don't know the auspices of it, but it was done at RKO, and it was very... you have the writer, you have the director down, do you?
Was that Nicholas Ray?
Nicholas Ray, very good director. And he took special pains with me. I was very glad because he changed around a conception that I had, and I was very glad that he did. And Fontaine was nice, and everybody says how difficult she is. She was really neat to me. I liked her very much. Funny enough, I saw Olivia, her beautiful sister, last year in France, and you just don't talk about that.
Still to this day?
To this day. Isn't it sad? Because they're both gorgeous and talented and so on. But anyway, I'm glad you saw that because, again, that's a modern girl, isn't it?
You bet. You bet. And what was Robert Ryan like to be?
Oh, he's a joy. You kidding? That great big Irishman. And a charmer, a very good actor, and very much underrated.
Yes. I often say that had he been living in England between his stage work and movie work, he'd have been knighted. That he'd have been Sir Robert.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Uh-huh.
He's just one of those. You never saw a bad performance from him.
Oh, no.
And
he's a great-looking guy, lovely voice and everything. You wonder, it's too bad. The studios had this way of doing things back then. If you were under contract, they cultivated you, they polished you, they bought books for you that were good, that they could make into a picture for you, they were suitable, and they made stars. They could make stars. It didn't take very long either. MGM was very good at that, but Warner's not so very good. But I don't know where was he under contract?
RKO for a long time until he kind of broke away in the mid-50s. But then he moved to New York in the late 50s and started doing a lot of theater with movies. But he had grown very tired of what he was being offered. And it's a shame. Also, he was having trouble, the blacklist, that he was being mentioned as having been a member of the Communist Party. And
for goodness sake, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, and here he was. He had been in the Marines during World War II, Marine Corps boxing champ and that, but they didn't go after him finally, but it was being brutal.
But that hurt.
Yes, yeah.
They were so skittish at that point. Even a little spell of communism, that was enough to slam the door on a whole career.
Yeah, 15, 20 years, you're just down the drain. Not a proud moment in America. But in Born to be Bad, were you looking for things like that were totally opposite the persona you had created at Warner Brothers?
Oh, yes, of course. By all means, I was.
And were you asking your agent to consciously look for things that weren't the girl next door, the good girl sort of thing?
Yes, but quite often that doesn't get you anywhere. Your agent can't, or your agent doesn't try hard enough, or they don't think of you as the right person for that kind of a part. Interesting, though, Howard Hughes owned the studio at that time, and after that picture, he called me in and asked me if I'd like to be under contract. He did that often, I think, with actresses he thought, that he could do a real career for. He really had very good ideas. Jane Russell never has a bad word to say about him. He was very good to her and actually did make that career. And, it might have been quite different, but at that point, I didn't want to be under contract. I wanted to be free to pick whatever parts that I thought were right, And so I said no.
Did you ever work again in a Hughes film after you said no?
No, but I didn't work in many films. I had a very lucrative contract out at Republic, which of course is not the most distinguished studio in the Hollywood, but they were very good to me, and it was very remunerative. And besides that, I was very much interested in getting married and my family. You know, it starts then, and that makes a big difference to me.
Right. Well, speaking of Republic, that was Jubilee Trail, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, dear, did you sit through that? I tried to not say that. My mouth just went right on by that. I just said, oh, did you enjoy that? But no, I had to say it. You know, Vera, it was a doll, but nobody got along with Vera because she was the boss's wife, of course.
This is Vera Ralston.
But she was, and she thought in Czech, you know, is that right, Czechoslovakian? Yugoslavian? Yes. I forget now, but she was just a charming lady, and we were friends, and I think I maybe was the only friend ever that she had, because I just thought she was real down to earth. But nobody else on the lot would talk to her. And we had a thing with Vera. We said, did you learn your lines in Czechoslovakian or not? Then she'd look at me like I was kidding or not, because her accent was pretty heavy. And they'd have to make several takes before you could really understand her lines. But Forrest Tucker was in that, and he was a joy to work with. There's another one that was underrated.
Yes. He never got the real chance with a breakout role.
No, until TV.
Right.
And then he had a very successful series.
Yes, with F Troop. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But Vera was a kick. Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a story that John Wayne refused a role because Vera Ralston, he was so tired of being in movies. He was with Republic too, and that he just said, no, I'm not going to be in another movie with Vera Ralston.
I know. Well, it was pretty hard for Tucker too. He was always cast with Vera, and you know, she was very limited in her abilities, and it limited Forrest too, and that's what Yates saw, you know, as the right thing to do for Vera. And of course, John would turn it down.
Yeah. Well, what a graceful way to say it, Joan. It says something about you to say that she was very limited. That's a sweet way to say it.
I don't know.
And then you also were against another actor that he did have trouble with, Sterling Hayden, in a movie called Hellgate.
Well, let me see now. That was a part that required, I think, 2 days' work for me, because there were scenes, you know, there on the ranch or wherever the thing was located, and then from there he went to a prison, and the rest of the picture was shot at this prison, and I wasn't. It didn't require much from me, and I didn't really get to know Sterling too well. But I thought he was pretty interesting. I certainly heard more about him after I worked with him than I did before.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Oh, Hellgate? I certainly did. That brutal prison in Arizona where he ends up.
You remember these things.
Yes, I know. I
well,
wiled
of course,
away.
You have to have this kind of a memory, don't you, John?
Well, I don't know why that one sticks with me. Some of those scenes when I was a kid and watching it on TV, yes. They were tough scenes in that prison. Mm-hmm. I had forgotten that he gets taken away from you and put wrongly into the prison. And then around the same time, you were in a Randolph Scott one, Man in the Saddle.
Oh, yes. Talk about wonderful leading men. You know, then there's Randolph Scott definitely falls into that category, too. Talk about handsome, just knock you out, and charming and gentlemanly. Oh, he was such fun. The Southern gentleman, you know, to the tips of his toes.
Yeah, you always hear that about him, that he was just a genuinely good man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think I've heard that he actually used to keep the Wall Street Journal by his chair in between shoots because he'd study the stock market and his investments.
How about that?
Yeah. I read that he when he died, his estate was worth over $100 million. Mm-hmm. So he made some smart investments.
Not only that, but he and his wife, you know, they just lived a wonderful life, the kind that you'd never hear of now in Hollywood anymore. There was Randolph Scott and his wife, Joe McCrae and his wife. You know, you can name them. And Gary Cooper and his wife. And Jimmy lived a very quiet. I mean, there aren't any like that anymore. Very few anyway, and I think they live in Australia. I'm not even sure of that.
Boy, Australians, are they suddenly hot in the entertainment business, aren't they? With Nicole Kidman and Kate Blanchett and Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really Heath Ledger. They're taking over from the British.
We can't hardly imagine anybody living in Australia, let alone being a movie star and coming up here.
Well, what's interesting is they go back to Australia. They don't seem to stay. They go back and live there, which I find interesting. And then you did an awful lot of TV, too. In fact, do I remember you were in a Charlie's Angels episode?
Yes, I did. And Simon and Simon. And I did one episode in Angela Lansbury's series, Murder, She Wrote.
Oh, that must have been fun getting together like that,
what a joy, yes. She's just such a good, grand person and terrific actress. And she's so in charge, you know. She really made that a big hit by watching every detail of it. And then, and her son, you know, became a director, and he was directing a lot of them toward the end that I know of. He directed ours.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And I worked with Teresa Wright on that, you know. We played the two little old ladies.
Right.
Knock off some of the older men in order to get their Social Security. It was cute, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, well, you know, Angela Lansbury's on Broadway now doing a play, Deuces, in which she's wonderful.
Of course she would be. Tell me what the name of it is. What?
Deuces.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. I know she loved the stage and theater, and that's good. And they love her in New York, I know.
Oh, yeah. And I can remember when I saw her in Sweeney Todd on Broadway. Oh.
That was hard work.
Oh, man. What a performance. She and Len Cariou. Yeah.
She was so equal to it, though. She was just marvelous.
And we'll be right back.
Now in bookstores from Thomas Dunn Books and St. Martin's Press, Bogey, a celebration of the life and films of Humphrey Bogart. Richard Schickel assesses Bogart's career and enduring legacy, while editor George Perry provides a detailed review of the films he made over 3 decades, with a particular focus on his key roles. Published with the authorization of the estate of Humphrey Bogart, this official celebration is a fitting tribute to a much-loved star and includes a foreword by Bogart's son, Stephen Humphrey Bogart.
Joan, you worked with, I've got to ask you this, you worked with Busby Berkeley. Could you talk about that?
A very animated, colorful guy. He knew what he was doing, and he was a good director, but you never knew what he was going to do next, you know. He was really comical and changeable, but I've heard more about his accomplishments on the screen of late. They're appreciating these fabulous dance numbers that he put on, and the way he used the camera. Imagine him breaking through the roof of one of the stages at Warner Brothers and putting a camera up above that to shoot down.
Right.
You see 20 or 30 girls swimming in a pool. I don't know how he ever talked J.L. into that, because J.L. wasn't talked into things very easily. Well, he was vivid, and he was a good director, and that's about all I can say about that. I don't think it was a very good picture. I don't think I was very good in it, but it was fun. I love Bob Alder. You know, Bob Alder also was not appreciated at all. Did you see A Rhapsody in Blue?
I certainly did. He
gave a wonderful performance in that. Oh, yeah. You know what the story is? The same year, Warner Brothers borrowed Gary Cooper, or somehow got him, to do Saratoga Trunk?
Yes.
That would possibly be the same year, wouldn't it?
Yeah, 46.
And so they were so glad to get Gary Cooper that they publicized that picture and his role in it just 10 times more than they did their own under contract Bob Alda, who was doing this wonderful job on Rhapsody in Blue, but just got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, that's so well. Wasn't he also hurt by the blacklist?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I don't know that about Bob. He of course came from stage, from burlesque, and he was very facile. And I think comedians are good actors because they have timing, the kind of timing you've got to have to tell a joke, you know, and they can put that into their acting ability, and I think it plays off very well. Now, he was a very gifted actor, and what else did we do besides Rhapsody in Blue? Cinderella Jones. I think we did one other. And then they let him go.
Yeah, I think part of that was the blacklist with Robert Alda. That they,
his son has done pretty well, don't you
he
think?
certainly has, hasn't he? Yes.
He was very proud of his son.
Well, he had every reason to be, because he had some extraordinary career. I also want to ask you about Ida Lupino.
Oh, yes.
What it was like, because she just seemed like such a bright, talented woman ahead of her time.
Absolutely brilliant actress, and so professional, and easy to get along with. I thought very easy to get along with. And, you know, she suffered because Betty Davis got the roles that she should have gotten there.
Yep.
No question about that, because she had all the ability, and she was prettier, actually, than Betty Davis, but, you know, they had Betty Davis, and she was, of course, their big star. Well, it was a great pleasure to work with Ida, and she was just like a sister to me. She never advised me or told me how to read a line or anything, but we just chatted on and enjoyed each other's company, I think. And, you know, she was very upset from time to time on The Hard Way, because she had to play it pretty heavy.
She was very good at playing heavies. That's why I was curious about her.
Well, she was marvelous, and, you know, she won the New York Drama Critics Award for the best performance that year.
Yep.
And but she had her time when Vincent Sherman directed it, and he would push her very hard. You know, said, "Do it again, and give it more," and whatever she was already doing. And she said, "Vincent, the audience is going to hate me. The critics are going to scold me, and I'm going to hate myself." And she'd cry and go to her room. But Vincent was on the right track with her, and she was good. It was hard, though. Oh, The Hard Way was all hard. She sprained an ankle. I sprained a rib in the middle of the dance routine, and I was out for 3 or 4 weeks, and we just did the drama. Couldn't do the dance number. They changed the script again and again. I was still in school at that time, and a lot of times I'd come over to the set, and they'd say, "Here's the way the scene plays now." And it would be a little different than it had been before I left the set. And so we'd have to take some time to get acquainted with it. But, Jack Carson. Talk about people who weren't appreciated.
He's another one, right? Yeah.
Outstanding. I was so glad to see that after he left Warner's, he did pictures at MGM. He played with all the big stars, and he was good.
Oh, yes. And
that's an example to me, again, that comedians have good timing and can become good actors. That's my pronouncement for the day, John.
Well, look at how correct you are with Robin Williams and Chris Rock and on and on and on. You're 100% right, obviously.
Well, thank you. My goodness.
You did also a movie with Jane Russell, A Revolt of Mamie Stover. Anything about that?
Right. That was a popular novel, and of course all they needed was Jane in a red dress, looking wonderful. And she's a funny girl, but she's a good friend of mine. It took years, but now we're good friends. Before that, we just knew each other, but it didn't come to anything. but now whenever I see her, or warm, she doesn't make friends easily. I do think all of that publicity that Hughes put her through in the beginning of her career hurt her personally, you know?
That's right, with the outlaw. Yeah.
I think that people prejudged her before they met her because of that publicity.
I think you're right.
And it wasn't fair.
Yes.
Now, this is going to be a three-parter, right? So really, I don't know where you're going, John, but it's been fun. I certainly have enjoyed it.
Well, so have I. And what is it? Oh, I know. You had an uncredited role in Foreign Correspondent, Alfred Hitchcock.
My goodness, yes, very uncredited. I was.
What is that all about? Tell me about that.
Oh, you know, I don't know why these fan magazines or something brings up something like that. I had nothing to say. It was a scene at the beginning of the picture when he's going on a trip on a ship, and he's a lovable guy with a big family, and he invited all of the family to see him off. And so that would be nieces and nephews and aunts and uncles, and we all crowded into his nice suite that he had, and I was bouncing on a bed, I think, and I'm not sure, I wasn't too camera-wise at that time, but in a shot where the camera moves all the way across to show, you know, all of the family, I think the camera went right over my head and I wasn't in the scene, but I'm not sure because I haven't seen it. Now, that's what I did in Foreign Correspondent. Let's kind of cross that off the list, shall we?
Okay. Did you meet Joel McCrea on that?
No, I really didn't. But I met him later at different charity things that we went to.
Right. They had that great ranch north of L.A.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And in fact, I interviewed Peter McCrea, his youngest son there once.
Oh, yes. And
Joel McCrea was married to, this is terrible, Frances D.
Frances D., thank you. My goodness. Beautiful brunette actress.
She acted opposite Cooper, and
of course she did. We met at a fan get-together in Tennessee, and she and I were guests and gave little speeches and signed autographs, and she was such fun. Oh, and then the Academy had a tribute to Cooper. You no doubt heard about that.
Yeah, I was out there for that.
And remember, they brought her and myself up on the stage.
Yep.
And asked us questions about it. Oh, she was just such fun. She's so natural and lovely. She's gone now.
Yes. And actually, Cooper had been offered the role in Foreign Correspondent, but he turned it down, and that's how Joel McCrea got the role.
They laugh about that. She said at that time on the stage, let me see, how did she put it? Joel used to say, they ask Gary first, and if he turns it down, then they ask me. Well, we just roared at that. Do you remember that?
I sure do.
Yeah. How can I remember these things?
That was a great night, that night at the Academy.
It was nice, yes.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to explore with us?
No.
All right, Joan, listen, this has just been a terrific time. Thank you so much. This is.
It was a pleasure. It was fun.
Oh, it was.
It's fun remembering.
It was fun for us. It'll be fun for our listeners.
Lucky to look back on such nice memories.
And
I don't know if people today are going to have such memories, you know, that are working in pictures.
Yeah, it's different now, isn't it?
The entire became completely different, but it's just been lovely talking to you. Call me again.
We certainly will.
Maybe there's a couple of things we haven't covered.
You bet. Certainly will.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Joan.
All right, bye-bye for now.
And we'll be back right after this.
Icons is a new monthly magazine based on larger-than-life personalities from the golden age of Hollywood. It's about passion, about style, about mystery. It's all about love, about glamour, about history, the movie biz, and its biggest stars. And not just any stars, but the true icons of the industry. Icons. They are forever.
He's looking at you, kid.
To order Icons magazine online, visit iconsmagazine.com or call 646-452-4579.
Oh, thank you, Joan, and thank you, John. What a lovely woman she is. Doesn't she still sound like the sweet young girl from those classic films? It's amazing her voice is almost the same all these many years later. Great interview. Well, that about wraps it up for us. Don't forget the 50th emailer each week gets a copy of Hollywood Blondes by Michelle Vogel. If it's Hollywood and if it's blonde, it's in this book. And don't forget to join us next week, where we have a really special guest for us, producer and Warner Brothers studio boss, Richard Shepard. The only thing I want to tell you about that interview is everything you wanted to know about Breakfast at Tiffany's and a lot more. So you don't want to miss that. And that's just about it for us this week. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you back on the radio next week.
You've been listening to Icons Radio Hour with John Mulholland and Steve Bogart. Past broadcasts are available for download at www.iconsradio.com. Now, you can take your Icons Radio Hour mobile by downloading your show as a podcast at the Icons Radio website or at the iTunes store at apple.com. Join us every week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another exciting edition of Icons Radio Hour. Good night, everyone.